Folks, for all of you out there that don't know, my daughter Havana is almost 16 years old. When do you turn 16? What, August 30th?
Yes, August 30th.
That is unbelievable. Are you fired up?
I am super fired up.
Okay, so you're almost 16 years old. It's freaking me out. And but I wanted to have you on the show today, and try to have you on the show more often because I want people to hear your voice, that you can actually raise kids that don't grow up to be idiots. It is possible. But I want to show you this footage here, Havana, because we interviewed a guy today. He's an 11-time Guinness World Record setter.
Wow.
He's a tightrope walker who actually chooses to, he's a daredevil, he's an aerialist, he's an acrobat, he's a high wire artist, and he actually chooses to do these crazy, I don't even know what you call these, crazy expeditions of awesomeness without a net. This man has actually walked directly over Niagara Falls.
Is this his career? Or?
He's actually walked over the Grand Canyon. This is what he does. Let me show you. I'm going to show you the footage, and you tell me what you're seeing. This is mind-blowing. Look at this footage of today's guest. His name is Nik Wallenda. Many of you are going to know his name because you've seen him on TV. This guy is the world's #1 most renowned tightrope walker. Look at this footage. I just want to get your reaction to it. Here we go. He's walking across
Praise
the
you, God.
You can't even hardly see the rope.
Praise you, Jesus.
This is him talking.
Yes, Jesus.
How long
That's
did it
what
take
he
him
praise
to
you.
cross this?
Praise you, Jesus.
He's talking to Jesus.
I don't want to talk to anyone, Dad.
Okay, I got you.
Praise. Talk all you want.
That's why the world is watching.
Till you get here.
He's walking
you,
across
Jesus.
the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
What do you think about this?
That is
Nick is now
really
at the
scary.
halfway point of this walk.
It freaks me out. The whole interview freaked me out. And I'm telling you, Thrive Nation, you have to check out this guy. Do a YouTube search right now for U.S. Daredevil completes Grand Canyon tightrope walk. And just as you're watching that, psychologically prepare yourselves for today's interview with the world-renowned 11-time Guinness Book of World Records record-setting tightrope walker, amazing guy, Nik Wallenda. Now, folks, I don't want to brag on myself, but I am recording today's show without a net, which means that if I were to fall out of my chair while recording today's show, I could potentially die. Wow, this Clay Clark guy's amazing. He's risking it all.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colin Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm a dive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the C&Z up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and
Yes, Thrive Nation, we are in the air everywhere. And today's show is an exciting show because you know how much I love danger.
Oh, yeah.
You know how much I love.
This dude is not
As
right,
an
by the
example,
way.
I typically will drive just a little over 60 on the road.
Dude, you're the worst driver in the world.
Okay, but listen, I don't get in accidents because I'm a safety first kind of guy. Okay, but listen, recently I've wanted some extra adrenaline in my life. I've wanted to wow my kids because not everybody can wow their kids the way today's guest does. But I wanted to wow my kids. I said, listen, don't be wowed by Nik Wallenda. You want to be wowed by your dad. And so I went there, and the other day I pumped gas while I was simultaneously on my phone.
Wow.
There's a warning label that says do not pump gas
do not do that.
while using your phone. It can be
Very
dangerous.
dangerous.
I did that. Z, I did it.
No,
I did.
No.
Are you not wowed? Fine.
I mean, I know
Whatever.
you run. I know.
Now,
the other day I saw you run. Well, you were fast walking with scissors, and that
was amazing.
That bothered me.
I also lit
really,
the 9 volt.
Yeah.
I'm doing all these high risk activities. Now, today's guest, though, no exaggeration, he has actually walked across Niagara Falls, at the Grand Canyon, a volcano, all while in the air without a net, and he appears to have a sound mind. Nik, welcome onto the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, but I have to tell you, My children are the last to be impressed by me. Trust me.
Are you serious? They're not wowed by They're not wowed by it.
Not in any way. They think Dad's boring.
Okay, I have to ask you, and then we'll get into the other stuff. I have to ask you because my head cannot process it. We're going to queue up some footage on the video version of this so people can see it. When you're walking across the Grand Canyon, you realize you could fall and die, right? I mean, what are you thinking?
I do realize that. In fact, my family history dates back to the 1780s. So well over 200 years, 7 generations, my family have been performing on wires. And we've lost 7 family members performing. So
7?
It is very, very real to me.
Have you ever lost multiple family members at the same time? Because you do stunts together, right? I mean, don't you?
Yeah, we have. That's right. Yeah, so in 1962, we had a 7-person pyramid fall in Detroit, Michigan, and 2 of my uncles were killed and 1 was paralyzed.
Oh, my goodness. And yet you still chose to take up the family passion of
You know,
walking.
it's funny. It's not that I chose. I think it chose me. You know, as I mentioned,
Wow.
my family's done it a long time.
Yeah.
My mom was 6 months pregnant with me and still walking the wire performing, about 30 feet above circus rings on a wire. I started walking a wire at 18 months old because I saw my parents doing it, saw how much they enjoyed it, about 18 inches off the ground, 2 feet off the ground. And that's when I started walking the wire. So to be honest with you, it's more life to us than a career, an occupation, being a daredevil. The reality is my great-grandfather said it best. He said, life is on the wire and everything else is just waiting. And for our family, that's true. This is really our lives. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's crazy to me that you don't get on the wire and walk. Again, it's just what we do and what we've done for so long.
What was your closest come to death moment? Have you had any that you like?
Yeah, I've had several of over the years. I would say I broke a world record live on the Today Show in 2008, I believe, and it was on a bicycle on a wire. And about 3/4 of the way through that walk, there was a catenary. So that means basically an engineering term for a smiley face. I started at one side, downhill, then back uphill. On the way back uphill, the back wheel started to slide. That was a point where it became oh so real to me. And also, I talk a lot about it in my latest book, which we're going to talk about soon. But an accident we had a few years ago where we had an 8-person pyramid collapse. I caught the wire, but the reality is I saw my life flash before my eyes for sure.
Wow.
When you catch the wire, do you just do a pull-up and then you're back on it? I mean,
so part of my training is to hold on to the wire, but basically catch the wire any way you can, arms, legs, whatever you can wrap around it. If I was hanging by just my arms, I would then, pull up, do a pull over, so my waist comes up over the wire, and then I can either stand back up or I can hold on. I train to hold on for about 13 to 15 minutes for all of my events. And I have rescue teams that can get to me, whether it be via a long reach lift or if it's over the Grand Canyon, they have carts that actually roll out on the wire to be able to get to me to bring me to safety.
Wow.
Whew. How do you know you're good at this before you do it? I mean, just as an example, if I said, hey, Z,
let's go.
I was inspired by Nik.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I was inspired by Nik.
Come on now.
And so I'm going to be juggling machetes.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Oh yeah.
I have practiced with non-real machetes, just things that look like plastic machetes. But I'm ready to go with the real deal.
Well, yeah, you are.
How How does one know that one is ready to go across Niagara Falls?
So you actually have the right formula. So you start out with machetes that aren't sharp, and you work your way up to sharp machetes. So I'll give you an example. For the Grand Canyon, we did studies. Jim Cantori's on my team for a lot of these events, and basically we'll do weather studies and wind studies with anemometers that showed that the winds would not exceed about 60 miles an hour at max while I was crossing. So part of my training was to train with 90-mile-an-hour winds, so that I'm over-prepared for what I might face. Now, I will tell you, I got hit with 3 gusts of 48 miles per hour while I was walking that wire over the Grand Canyon. But the way that I'm able to stay calm is because I go back to my training immediately. When I train for an event, I train on a wire that is down low, that is rigged more unstable than the one that I'm going to be walking on, but also, again, trying to recreate the elements that I'll be facing. And then also, I'll walk that wire 4 or 5 times the distance I have to walk for the actual event down in a lower setting. At that point, the wire really isn't much different other than the height. So at that point, it's nothing but a mind game.
How do you get paid? Do people pay you to do this? I mean, is it a thing where you
do?
So they pay you like a big? Just walk us through the mechanics, because this is a business show, and I want to get into your book, but I want to know how do you get paid?
Yeah, so we can back up a little bit more. My great-grandfather said it best when he described the circus world, which again was my life growing up. He said, one day you eat the chicken and the next day you eat the feathers. And that's true really for all live entertainment. My mom wrote a book in the late 80s called The Last of the Wallendas because she believed that the industry was done. It was dying. It was over. My parents struggled financially, went through bankruptcy a couple times, and they didn't believe I could make ends meet. So a long story short, they encouraged me to go off to school. I was accepted at a university in Florida where I was going to go off, and my goal was to become a pediatrician. But I still had this passion of walking a wire. And I'll never forget getting a phone call, and it was from my uncle, and he said, we've been invited to go back to Detroit, Michigan to recreate that pyramid that collapsed back in '62 for the first time since it fell. And I remember going back there and getting on the wire and seeing, after 6 months of training, and it took a lot of convincing to get my parents to allow me to do this, but we went there, we created this pyramid, and at that age, I was 18, and it seemed like the eyes of the world were on it. There were documentary crews from Germany and Japan and China and the U.S. A&E was there as well, and all of U.S. TV showed our first performance live back, etc. And I remember seeing that and thinking that I don't think our industry is dying. I think it's changing, and that we need to change with the times, and we need to do some big things like my family used to do in order to build this brand. So moving forward, I decided I was going to do these big TV specials. The idea was to build a brand, a worldwide brand. The Flying Wallenda name is fairly synonymous with the circus world for sure, the Great Wallenda name. But I was trying to build a brand that would be, that brand is sort of phased out in the last generation. So I thought, look, I'm going to build the Nik Wallenda brand. And that's when I decided I was going to walk across the Grand Canyon and Niagara Falls and seek these big specials. So to answer your question in a long way, networks pay, of course, for these stunts. For instance, the Discovery Channel over the Grand Canyon is the highest rated show in the history of their network. Highest live show in the history of their network. I actually won an Emmy for that show. So obviously it's all about sponsorship dollars for them, branding dollars. Chicago, I walked over Chicago skyline, broke 2 world records. One was the steepest incline, 600 feet above the skyline. One was blindfolded between 2 skyscrapers, about 670 feet up. That was live on Discovery Channel. That's the second highest rated show in the history of their network. So to answer your questions, networks pay me very good money because I bring in high ratings, which is how they get their money, and viewership, which is very important to them. But also I do a lot of corporate speaking. So for instance, I did a corporate event for United Rentals where they rented out the Colts Stadium in Indianapolis. And I walked over the top of the stadium. They brought in their entire team, and I do motivational speaking from 150 feet up on a wire.
You make me so nervous. You make me so nervous. Right now, I feel like I'm walking on a high wire. Hearing about you walking on a high wire, I mean, seriously, this is like every time someone says Peyton Manning now, I'm going to think of Nik Wallenda walking over the high wire. I mean, it's just, it's some scary stuff. But yet you have somehow you've documented your processes and your mindsets all into a book that is called Facing Fear, Step Out in Faith, and Rise Above What's Holding You Back. Now, there could not have ever been a more timely book written because right now, Z, you know this. If a child gets COVID-19, according to Dr. Scott Jensen, this is a doctor from Minnesota, Senator Z. According to Dr. Scott Jensen,
oh yeah, great guy.
Only 1 out of 1 million kids will die if they get COVID-19. That's the actual number right now, the actual data. But yet people are afraid to go outside. People are afraid to do basic things.
Yeah, timing is everything, right? I mean, it's funny. I wrote this book because about 2 years ago we had a really bad accident where we were doing an 8-person pyramid. It collapsed. It's a 4-layer high pyramid. My feet were at 28 feet. My aunt was about 55 feet up. Her head was at the top of this pyramid. That pyramid collapsed. And your chances of surviving a fall like that are about 30% from that height. A long story short, I caught the wire, held on. My cousin did. One of the guys stayed standing. 5 family members, friends fell. Very, very seriously injured. My sister went into a coma. They didn't expect her to live. She actually broke every bone in her face. She landed on her head. And broke every bone in her face, 73 screws and plates in her face alone. I went on to perform the next day, actually another corporate event where I got on a wire 150 feet above Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. And spoke to a crowd of about 18,000 people. I went on to perform for 6 more weeks. But all the while burying this accident, just not not really acknowledging it, knowing it happened, visiting my sister, visiting all my family in the hospital. But my family's always lived by the words, the show must go on. I've adapted them to never give up, and that's what I did. Well, I took about a 6-week break, and after that 6-week break, we started training to headline on a show in New York City. And as we began to train, I began to experience fear, something I didn't know was in my DNA. And that's really what this book is about, is what it took. I was literally watching a form of PTSD, but watching that pyramid collapse in front of me over and over again as I was holding that pyramid with 6 other people, risking their lives. Got to the point where I finally said, I can't do this anymore. Went to my wife, I'm done. My wife said, look, my wife comes from 8 generations of circus. She holds 2 Guinness World Records herself. She's very supportive of what I do and supportive of my decisions, but she said, that's not the way your families lived for 200 years. I don't know that you really want to give up. I think you need to rethink that. And really the book is what it took for me to overcome fear. But the reality is, my goal is with this book is that it helps others that are overcoming fear, people that are scared, as you mentioned, from this pandemic, scared to leave their house, people that are, and that was prior to this pandemic, but
right.
People that are, yeah, so people that are miserable going to work every day. I think so many people are miserable every morning. They go to work because they know in 2 weeks, every 2 weeks they're going to have a paycheck and it covers their mortgage, rather than going, you know what? Screw this. I'm miserable. I want to get out of here. I want to pursue my dreams. Now, again, I don't encourage people to be foolish. I don't encourage you to leave your job. But my life story, my first book called Balance, is about how I had to work at a restaurant while I pursued my dream of performing, but I still continue to pursue my dream.
Right. I see you talk about this a lot. That the thing that you hate the most,
not falling off a 100-foot high wire.
The thing you hate more than falling off of this, or maybe you hate almost as much as falling off of a building. The thing you talk about it. You say that you hate fear.
I do.
You talk about that all the time. I want to get your take on fear before we ask Nick more questions about his new book.
Well, I mean, I think fear is the enemy of what's happening in the world today, and I'm very excited about the book. I haven't read it yet, Nick, but I'm looking forward to it, and I think that's a good life lesson for all of us. I mean, hey, every day you can wake up and be afraid of something, right?
You can.
I mean, you can.
You can pump gas while on the phone. You could be scared out of your mind.
You could walk fast with scissors.
That could scare you.
That could scare you. No, my point is though is that we have to push through that fear. We've got to get over that fear. We have to make that fear our bitch. And say no to it and live our life as if we're not being. I mean, you're going to let fear control you, and so many people are right now, Nick. You see that, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely. And look, that I write a lot about that in the book, and I also write about the fact that there's a healthy fear and an unhealthy fear. There's a healthy fear that when I walk up to the edge of the building that says, "Hey, you know what? That's dangerous. You could fall. Be careful, and be aware of your surroundings." But see, I take that fear and I turn it to respect. So what I mean by that is I respect that. I respect the edge of the building. I respect the snake. Yeah, I'll get near a poisonous snake, but I'm going to get close enough where he can strike me. I respect the spider enough, but I'm not going to get close enough if he's poisonous and I don't know enough about him to pick him up. So again, it is about having turning that unhealthy fear into a healthy fear, into a respect. And that's very important. Look, I think some of the greatest athletes in the world, I know several of them, and they get nervous before they go on the field. That or the court. That is a respect for that sport. They respect that they have to deliver to that level. So they get knots in their stomach before a game often.
Now, in your book, I understand you talk about finding your footing. Finding your footing. What does it mean to find your footing?
Look, I think that I think it's really figuring out. It's sort of getting into your lane. I think a lot of people again are playing out in a world where they're not in their lane, and they're gripped by fear, as we just talked about. And I encourage people when I say find your footing to figure out where you want to be in life, and then follow a path, create a path to get there. And once you do, then you'll know what your footing is. But again, so many people don't know. They're miserable every day. They're not happy. They're being, to be honest, brought to fear by things like mainstream media. Who if I watch the news every day, if I hear a lie enough, I'll start to believe it. And that's just the reality. So no matter which side you sit on the fence, if you hear a lie enough, you'll start to believe it. And that is concerning to me about society as a whole. But again, I think there's a lot of fear mongering going on in our world right now.
To quote, and I don't often on the show. James, you listen to the show a lot. James is an attorney here, by the way. He's from New York, and James is going to be asking you some questions in just a minute here, too. But, James, on the show, I try not to quote just a whole lot of Adolf Hitler. Can you go on the record of saying I try not to quote a ton of Adolf Hitler?
Yes.
I mean, not a whole lot, right? He's not really a motivational guy we want to refer to. He's the most terrible person in the history of the world that we know of. And Adolf Hitler says, if you tell a big enough lie, and he says if you tell it repeatedly, people will believe it. I'm quoting directly, Z. This is Adolf Hitler says, if you tell a big enough lie and tell it frequently enough, it will be believed. So we're having guys on our podcast like Dr. Ben Carson.
Oh, yeah.
Like Senator Scott Jensen. These are like very respected. I mean, Dr. Carson is probably one of the most respected doctors of all time. And these people are saying, hey, look, if you get COVID-19 and you are under the age of 18, you literally have a 1 in 1 million chance of dying. There can't be much lower of a risk thing for a kid to have. Specifically as it relates to COVID-19, for all of the mothers out there that are watching this show, all the fathers watching this show, what advice would you have for them as it relates to their kids and the level of fear they are feeling right now about their kids going out amongst the rest of the world? What Nick, what's your take on that?
I would relate it to a walk that I do. For instance, I most recently walked over an active volcano in Nicaragua live on ABC.
Whoa.
And in order to prep for that, I did studies of winds. I did studies of gases. I did studies with wire ropes and what would withstand the gases for months, let alone the days the wire would be up. What did I have to prepare for? So I did a bunch of research, and I did the research on my own. And why I say that is I think that people are so anxious and so quick to listen to what they hear rather than researching it on their own. And for me, that's how I've been successful in my world, is by doing a bunch of research. And that's how I've been able to safely break 11 Guinness World Records, because I've done research and preparation. So as a father who is a father of a 17-year-old daughter, I have a son who's 22 who serves our country as a Marine, and I've got a 19-year-old who serves in the U.S. Army, and then my daughter's 17, getting ready to go back to school. In fact, tomorrow's her first day of her senior year. Of course, if I listen to the media, immediately I'm going to freak out and say, how can she go there? She's going to get coronavirus, it's going to spread, and my daughter's going to die. But the reality is, if I do research, just like you mentioned, and what the odds are of her getting sick and dying, she has a much better chance of winning the lottery than contracting coronavirus and dying. So again, to me, life is about doing research. So many people this day and age, society, are a bunch of lemmings that just follow.
Yes.
Rather than doing research on their own and doing studying on their own and actually weeding out the facts. Now, I will say in their defense, this day and age, we are so inundated with people that are so far apart from one another that you don't know who to believe or what to believe. But again, do your research on your own. And usually I think that we find enough wisdom in what we learn to make the proper decision. But don't just listen to what you're told.
Rapid fire questions now. James, you're an attorney from New York. Before I cue up your theme music here, will you tell Nick your last name so he can look you up later if he wants to?
Nick, hi. My name is James DiCristofaro. I'm based in New York. That's where my office is, and I'm also expanding to Oklahoma. I picked up and left New York for a bit. And
I met him 6 months ago, and I convinced him to live here. So he lives here now, and I spent several hours working on this theme song for our attorney friend Z from New York.
Moving.
It's really
It's
amazing.
It's amazing.
Z, you want to get the cowbell ready?
Oh, yeah.
Nick's going to love this.
Oh,
We're putting our reputations are at risk here. We're facing the fear. We have a fear of what this could do. He might not be impressed by the theme song. Again, this is the perfect song.
Bold.
This is the best we could do to come up with a theme song for an attorney from New York. Here we go. What do you think? Does that make you think of an attorney from New York?
I think it's great.
Too much cowbell, or Nick? Too much cowbell, or back off a little bit?
More cowbell.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Everything's better with cowbell.
So James, what nefarious, double-minded, trickster, gotcha questions do you have for Nick?
Okay, Nick. A few years back, I was watching a video of an interview with Bob Marley, and he was walking in some sort of like a, I don't know, backwoods area of Jamaica. It was like a desert area. He had his guitar on his back, and the reporter was asking him questions. He was answering questions, and he walked up a 3-step flight of stairs, turned, and the next thing you know, he's in front of 100,000 people playing. So the reason why I said that to you is, how do you mentally prepare for a walk like that? You mentioned, your preparation, your wind speeds and temperature and all that stuff. Do you just get out of the car like Bob Marley would and walk up on stage, or walk on the wire? The wire is your stage. Or do you mentally prepare?
Great question.
And then the second part of the question is, have you ever prepared like that and just refused to go out on the wire for whatever reason?
So as far as preparation goes, or moments leading up to the walk, generally I sleep very well. I'll sleep till 9-10 in the morning prior to a walk. So it's not as though I don't sleep the night before. But because it is so normal to me, even though it's in these unique locations which add greater challenges, it is similar to that. I will be having a conversation with someone and they go, oh, guess what, it's showtime, I need to get on the wire. There is a lot of mental preparation, physical preparation, but that's usually done months leading up to it. So by the time that I get to the location, for instance, Nicaragua, I can actually relax for a couple days and I will get into sort of a zone leading up to it. But again, I will be having conversation like we are right now, and then step out on that wire over that volcano and make that walk. Part of that is, again, because I've done it for my entire life, that it is something that I'm very comfortable doing. Although, again, there are nerves, there are stress, there is that healthy fear.
When getting ready to go across the volcano without a wire on a tightrope, when you were doing your research, did you discover that volcanoes are hot?
Yeah, actually, there's 2,000 plus degree magma flowing at the bottom of this volcano. It was an fully active volcano that I walked over. Yeah, look, we do research for, basically I have a team and we sit in a room and determine what are the worst cases prior to even visiting a volcano. Okay, I want to walk over an active volcano. What are the issues with the volcano? So we hired a volcanologist from a university to join our team and say, here's the worst case. Here's what you're going to face. And then from there, we'll find the location. And then that location, we'll do location research for several months. And then after that, we'll string a wire and walk.
Nick, what's the big tuna? What's something you're going, oh yeah, I want that's in my wheelhouse. I'm going after that. Like, what's that?
It's tough to continue to outdo myself. I do have several world records that are outside of wire walking, but I would love to do something in outer space. It wouldn't be wire walking, obviously, because there's no gravity there, but I would love to do the first stunt ever in outer space. So that's something that's on my mind.
Have you talked to Elon Musk? Have you talked to Musk?
I have not, but that is obviously one of the first people that
Can I tell you something? This is something that's interesting. The head of NASA, Jim Bridenstine, is one of Dr. Z's very good friends.
Yeah, he is.
Very good friends. And the Muskie one, Elon Musk, is friends with
the Bridenstine.
So really,
SpaceX.
I think what you have to do when we get off, seriously, send your hottest clip to Z's cell phone, and then Z could see if he could introduce you, because I think that we could make that happen.
Yeah,
that could happen.
That would be awesome.
What kind of stuff? What kind of stuff are you thinking about? Have you thought
eating space ice cream up there, or what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you got it. Space ice cream for sure. No, you can actually. There's been some studies done that you can make actually an untethered full orbit. Obviously, if you get pulled away, you'll never be seen again. Yeah. But you can actually follow the orbit, make a full lap. So that's one that's been on my mind for a while. Obviously. But when I think of these things, I think of, okay, Wallendas are known for over 200 years of wire walking. So when I think of my wire stunts, I think of how can I make David Blaine and Chris Angel and Evel Knievel, who's no longer with us, of course. But if I can make those guys jaw drop, then I've got something. So that's
you'd be like a satellite.
To think of when I think of these events. Or if those guys are impressed, then anyone will be, and most of them are close friends.
So you would be like a satellite for a day?
That's absolutely right, and it is realistic.
That's so cool.
You're not even kidding right now.
No, and that's what's so crazy.
It's like you have a drunk friend, and you went camping, and you've been camping so long.
I think Wallenda is Latin for crazy.
I'm just
I
saying,
think
it's
roughly
like
translated.
you know when you go camping with a friend or you hang out and they've had 4 too many beers and it's about 2 a.m. and they start saying weird stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm hearing here, but he's sober and he's serious.
I know, and we're not even camping.
If you were to say, I want to go to space, and float around, tether around to impress my friends, I would say, you need to stop drinking.
Yes, right now.
He's sober, though. I don't understand the whole. I mean, I have never been more nervous interviewing someone than right now. I literally am scared right now. I am scared. If I want to buy your book to get on,
read the book.
You got to read the book.
And you want to introduce him to NASA now.
What's the name of the book one more time? Give us the name of the book.
It's Facing Fear is the name of the book. It comes out September 15th.
Facing
Fear.
I am facing fear. I'm looking right at the
I
face
know.
of fear.
I
Okay.
know.
Let's talk about your cranium for a second. Do you shave your head so that you're more aerodynamic, or what?
I shaved my head because my hair was falling out, and I thought, who am I fooling? So I decided to shave my head. I will tell you that was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life, and I actually made a video about it to hopefully help encourage people to step out of their comfort zones. Because I'll tell you what, for years my hair was receding, and I'm like, nobody can tell. And finally one day I woke up and went, who the hell am I fooling? But it was one of the scariest things I've ever done. Walking over an active volcano, shaving my head. It's crazy.
That makes a lot of sense.
James, I think we have time for one more question. And one more solid question here. So, James, what is your final question for the great one, the great Nik Wallenda?
I didn't answer his last question.
Oh, yeah, answer his last question, yeah. Yeah.
So the second part of that is, no, I've never walked up to a cable and not gotten on it and walked across. Matter of fact, I've never canceled a show due to weather. I did a walk over the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh, about 260,000 people there, and it was pouring down rain. The wire was rigged very, very uniquely. My wire shoes were lost in shipping, and the cable was greased, and I still got on that cable and walked across.
Whoa.
A pro tip for you. I'll just give you. I hate to give. See, our guest doesn't come on the show to get tips from me, but I'm going to give you tips. This is a pro tip. Yeah. You never want to ship your cable walking shoes, and you also never want to ship your pants. Yeah. You want to just bring carry-on. This is a pro. You don't want to ship your pants. If you ship your pants might not arrive.
Yeah.
And so that's the pro tip I want to give him here. Yeah. Now, James, we have time for one more question, I believe, here. And then Z will one-up you. But let's get your theme music ready. Z, you ready for his theme music?
Yeah, ready?
We have our good friend James, our attorney from New York. Here we go. Oh. Okay, James, what questions do you have for the great Nik Wallenda?
Wallenda.
Sure, I have a question for you first, Clay. Did you just invite me down here to beat me? I mean,
listen.
Oh my gosh,
this is called
nice.
This is called audio branding, and I'm going to tell you something. I know our listeners, and I know our listeners hate attorneys, and I know they need a good one, and you're a good one. But if I don't say what our listeners are thinking, they're not going to use your service.
Your credibility then.
They have to know. We all know. The attorneys are just people don't like them. But we like you. But we still need to have accurate theme music. Back to you, attorney from New York.
All right. Nik. Okay, so Nik.
Just glad I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, wait, we'll get you theme music.
Most attorneys hate themselves.
That's true as well.
All right, continue.
Okay, so it seems like if your kids, I think you testified earlier that your kids aren't very impressed with you at all, or at least with respect to the stunts that you do. Does that mean that the Walensky skill set of
wire
walking stops with you, or do you have a school, or what are you doing to continue?
So we do have a school where we train people, but I would tell you that I have a nephew and I have a couple nieces that perform. My children all are very, very good on the wire. I was just doing a shoot for Time Magazine here in Sarasota where I live, and my son was helping me, and he jumped on the wire. He was home from the Marines, and I was doing everything I could to knock him off the wire and couldn't push him off the wire. They were trained just like I was ever since they were 18 months, 2 years old on a wire. So they're very good, but it's very hard to impress your children is what I was meaning more than anything.
Gotcha.
For my kids to walk on a wire, for instance, that walk over the Allegheny River, they were much younger. And as I was walking, I remember looking over to the Fort Duquesne Bridge where my family, my wife and 3 kids were walking along, and they were fighting over their Game Boy as I was walking, or their DSi at the time. They were fighting over that as I was walking the wire because they wanted to play video games as I was walking.
What, I guess my final question before Z one-ups me is this. Do you have a certain theme song? Because I feel like if I was going to walk over a wire, like for instance, if we put a wire that was 6 inches off the floor and I was willing to walk across this room, I would fall off and probably injure myself. But I would at least have like a song in my head. I would be something, some sort of jam.
Rocky or something.
Well, I mean, something really motivational like.
I sure hope I make it to the end. Wow. 6 inches is a long ways to fall.
So I want to ask you there, what music, do you have a song that you listen to sometimes?
I don't necessarily, of course, I listen to motivational music just because when I work out, I do the same. And when I'm practicing, same thing. But I'm guessing that the next time you have me on the show, I will have a theme song.
A theme song?
You know it.
Wow. Okay. Z?
That's a challenge.
That is a challenge. And we're up to it, young man. We're up to it. You're not the only Wallenda trickery.
We know a lot of guys that
family
walk
stuff.
across Niagara Falls.
I mean, we know.
Z, back to you. What's your final question?
I walk every day.
What's your final question, Z?
Well, I guess we've kind of banged around quite a bit. I love the book comes out. He answered that question. And
when does the book come out? When is the book? When can we buy the book?
September 15th.
Yep, September 15th. Online retailers, of course, in your local bookstore. If you're brave enough to go out there.
Oh, goodness.
September 15th. Okay, and we'll make sure the show comes out on the 15th because that's what we're going to do.
How many times have you fallen?
So in practice, I've fallen a lot. I have not fallen in any performances other than, I was training too back in 2017 when my sister fell to the ground. But I haven't fallen in a professional live setting since I've been an adult. When I was younger, a few times before I was 18, I did and caught the wire. In fact, I would say the most dangerous fall I ever took was because it was in between shows and I was resetting equipment, and there were a couple hot girls walking by, and I got distracted, lie, and fell down to the wire and almost dropped the equipment I was carrying.
That'll do it.
I almost dropped my microphone when I saw this beautiful man on today's show. I almost was like, whoa, almost fell down right there. You're a beautiful man. You're a great guest. You're an author of a book. One more time, what's the name of that book? One more time. What's the name of your new book?
Facing Fear is the name of the book. So facingfearbook.com, nikwallenda.com. You can find out all the information about me and upcoming tours.
Brother, I appreciate you being on the show. You are a great American. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
Boom. Boom. Boom.
Why does this still keep happening to me? I don't know whose prayer I'm breaking into, but I'm breaking into somebody's prayer saying, Lord, why do I keep going through the same things over and over again? And the Lord sent me here to tell you the problem is with your default. Until you change your default, you will always go back to being who you were before because you have never changed your mind. You change your friends, you change your address, you change your phone number, you change the songs you sing, you change everything else, but you didn't change your mind. There's nothing as powerful as a changed mind.
Boom! Nothing as powerful as a changed mind. Boom! Better get yours, cause I'ma take mine. Boom! Leave them where they at if they ain't ready. Used to have a lot of homies, now they dropping like a betty. I'm like, boom! We taking over, it's our time now. Boom! Oh, you ain't know? We about to thrive now. Big, overwhelming, optimistic, monumental, A-clay. Sit back, let me get 'em. Go get him then. Hurdle every obstacle, trying to do the impossible. Turned my whole life around, haters thought it was comical. Had to make some moves, didn't even seem logical. Quarterback to play, man, I had to call it audible. Drop back, stop that, rearrange or switch it up. Only got one life to live, it's best that you go live it up. Failure ain't an option, ain't no way that I can give it up. Hey, knowledge, gon' pick it up. Nothing like your posse, look poppy, you cannot top me. They watch me and try to copy like Rocky, you cannot stop me. Hungrier than ever, we grinding all through the weather. We shining because we better get with us, we bout our cheddar. Once I change my mind, dog, trust me, ain't no going back. Coming for that top spot, I'm feeling like they owe me that. Time for us to level up, I feel like we've been holding back. Throw your hands up, say it with me if you know it, Dad. Boom! Nothing is powerful as I change mine. Boom! Better get yours, cause I'ma take mine. Boom! Leave them where they got if they ain't ready. Used to have a lot of homies, now they dropping like a petty. I'm like, boom! We taking over, it's our time now. Boom! Oh, you ain't know, we about to thrive now. Big, overwhelming, optimistic, momentum. Hey, Clay, hey, back, let me get 'em. Yeah. Came a long way from where I used to be. Home need to see life the way I used to see it. Old habits die hard, but you gotta leave them. If they ain't riding like a Harley, then you don't need them. You're cheering and you're clapping, I don't need that. Fake friends treat them like Fat Joe, make them lean back. Excitement, no vision, makes you blind, I can see that. Anything I think up in my mind, I can achieve that. I can make a million if I want to. I'ma keep it real cause I want to. Other women tryna holler, girl, I want you. And disrespecting wifey's what I won't do. Gon' do your dance, gon' do your dance. If you really wanna change, gotta have a plan. Even when they sit down, I'ma take a stand. Throw your hands up, say it with me if you know it, man.
Beliefs become your thoughts, thoughts become your actions. So be intentional about where your passion is focused. There's no hocus pocus. We only live once, man, and you know this. You can't press the rewind, but you can make a beeline to the next level like you're headed for the tree line. I was born in Minnesota, moved to Oklahoma, incorporated both into my rhymes. Now it's time to show ya how a former stuttering student can turn out the raps with a lyrical miracle flow in the cash to match. Yeah, I'm imported, a Minnesota refugee, but I'm consistent as can be as I rap on hip-hop beats, bringing rappers and tax. Even though that I'm wise, I can play that funky music, but I ain't vanilla ice. Here we go, here we go, here we go, full scream. 3, 2, 1, dynamite on the scene.
Boom! Nothing is powerful as I change mine. Boom! Better get yours, cause I'ma take mine. Boom! Leave them where they got if they ain't ready. Used to have a lot of homies, now they dropping like a petty. I'm like, boom! We taking over, it's our time now. Boom! Oh, you ain't know, we about to thrive now. Big, overwhelming, optimistic, momentum. Boom!
And the Lord sent me here to tell you the problem is with your default. Until you change your default, you will always go back to being who you were before because you have never changed your mind. You change your friends, you change your address, you change your phone number, you change the songs you sing, you changed everything else, but you didn't change your mind. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind.
Hear the rest of T.D. Jakes' incredible, life-changing, and mind-altering sermon, Nothing as Powerful as a Changed Mind Today, by looking up T.D. Jakes on YouTube and typing in Nothing as Powerful as a Changed Mind.
You're getting ready to flow. I feel the glory.
That is a lyrical miracle rap